This episode of Cinemajaw is brought to you by Backblaze. Get unlimited computer backup for Macs or PCs for just $6 a month. Backup documents, music, photos, videos, drawings, podcasts, projects, all of your data. Restore files anywhere you have internet, and even if you are off the grid, they can overnight you a hard drive with your backup on it. Over 40 billion files restored. Get yourself a free, fully featured trial at backblaze.com/CPC. Please make sure you visit that link, backblaze.com/CPC, so they know where you came from and continue to support this show. Go there, play with it, start protecting yourself from potential bad times. Start today. We thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location at Cards Against Humanity in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rye, the movie guy, and sitting inside the fish tank is none other than producer Pat.
Hey guys, how's it going?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we take a long time doing our top 5 as we cover our top 5 favorite long movies.
This is fun.
And let me qualify what a long movie is.
Well, take your time, Ryan.
Why wouldn't I, right?
Why you never do?
We set a standard, and I love this because you can't cheat on this particular top 5 like you did on the Sisters.
You're really drawing this out, aren't you? What was the standard?
3 hours.
Okay.
So we're talking 180 minutes plus qualifies as a long movie.
Okay.
And I actually think this is going to turn out to be one of the more helpful top 5 lists we do for the Jawheads, because nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to sit through a 3 hour plus bad movie.
That's true. Well, but you've sold me, Ryan.
Right?
Yeah.
And when we get to this top 5 list, I'm going to mention a few that are just bloated and would have been so much better if they were down to like a normal 2 hours and 20-minute runtime. Instead, they were these over 3 hours, and it somewhat hurt the film, I think.
That's interesting you say normal, right? Because as I was looking at this like long movie lists, just doing the research, I found quite a few that were under our 3 hour mark, because there was a time when 2 hours and a half or 2:45 was considered quite a long movie. But now we've had films like the ones we're about to discuss, and I think that's been pushed forward. So we get a movie like The Irishman, which we're going to be talking about, that's 3.5 hours long. So
right.
the standards have changed.
Interesting. And we saw it in 2 different ways. I know you watched it at home via Netflix.
I actually rigged up a Tamagotchi. Do you know these things?
No.
Oh, it's a little digital pet. I jerry-rigged the screen, hacked it, and watched it as Scorsese intended.
Okay.
This is an internet meme. He has no idea.
No clue.
Yeah.
No clue.
As
what you're talking
Scorsese
about.
intended. All the Jawheads are laughing.
So we'll talk about that. And I went to the theater and saw it. And so we'll discuss that when we talk about our viewing of The Irishman.
We will.
Yes. Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Pat?
Yes, this week we were also going eye for an eye on Jumanji, The Next Level.
And we have reviews of The Irishman and Richard Jewell,
Nice.
the new Clint Eastwood.
Right.
Yeah, which I forgot about right before I sat down.
Looking forward to talking about both those films.
Same.
Since we're going eye for an eye on the new Jumanji film, I thought this would be a good time, Matt, for you to take on producer Pat in Jumanji trivia.
Okay. All right.
All right?
Yeah.
Jumanji trivia is fun.
Jumanji trivia is always fun.
Yes. And believe it or not, 2019 is coming to an end. We are in the last month of the year.
Yeah. It's a good year, I guess. I don't know.
I think it's been a really good year, but it seems to have gone by super fast.
It did go by really fast. It's not just me, huh?
I think one thing that lends the year to going faster is because we're doing Cinemajaw and we break it into the months where we're doing themes and we're doing riddles. So for some reason, because I'm keeping track of it and doing it, I think it just accelerates that speed of the year to me.
Huh. Well, on that note, don't we have a new riddle and
new theme?
Oh my goodness.
We discussed this theme a couple months ago. Me and Matt looked at one particular film coming out in December, and we said we got to do something special. We got to. treat the December month with a particular theme that we're both fond of. Obviously, we just wrapped up Woody Harrelson month.
What a month.
We've been celebrating such great actors, actresses, and directors.
Yeah, we should get a recap on the next episode.
We will. So we decided to close it out with the greatest franchise in movie history. December will be known as Star Wars month here on Cinemajaw.
Beautiful.
You're okay with this?
Of course I'm okay with
Well,
this,
it's
man.
great that me and you can finally come to, an agreement.
There's not too much we agree on, but for some strange reason, you like Star Wars.
Right. So it works out that Star Wars is the theme of December. We're going to be giving you facts. At one point, we are going to hold each other to ranking the Star Wars films that have come out. And we'll have poll questions, we'll play clips, and of course, we will be reviewing Rise of Skywalker with none other than Brian Tellerico. The way this end of the year schedule looks out at, we do our top 10 list, looks like we will have just seen Rise of Skywalker prior to recording that top 10 list.
Stoked.
So we'll get Tellerico's review in there as well. It's going to be a heck of a
real
show.
treat. Yeah.
It really is. So let's kick off Star Wars month with an interesting Star Wars fact. Pat, do you have anything for us?
All right, the first Star Wars fact for this month has to do with Ewoks. Did you know that the word Ewok was never spoken in Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi? It did, however, appear in the credits. The name Ewok itself was inspired by Miwok Native American tribe. The Miwok tribe is native to the Redwood Forest, where most of the Ender scenes were filmed.
The Ewoks. Were you a fan?
As a kid, of course I was a fan. I had a wicked stuffed animal, like a teddy bear, essentially.
But what's interesting about that fact, and I think what was so different from those original trilogy to all the movies, especially the prequels, was the fact that Ewok was not actually used in the movie. You know, it was used in the credits.
Did they say porgs in the new one at any point?
We'll have to throw that into the fish tank.
All right.
Yeah.
I can look that up.
Yeah. So they weren't saying Ewoks, but we figured it out. It was in the credits. It was talked about. And then
let's be honest. It was on all the Kenner toys.
Right. But I remember seeing the prequels and the way they would just announce the character's name and the species or whatever. It was
He's
just
a
so...
Gungan.
Yeah, it's right in your face.
Yeah.
Like, let the audience know, what the species is, or figure out the name of the character in other ways or in passing, not as soon as he walks in, that's Watto, that's so-and-so, and explain his whole background in a few sentences.
Yeah, that's
weak.
interesting. I mean, both movies from the same filmmaker, but for some reason he sort of regressed in that way and over-explained things in the prequels. I agree.
Yeah. Wow. Star Wars month. I like it, Matt.
I do too.
Also,
Did you have the Ewok Village, that toy?
I did not.
That was the only one that was mine, because all of my Star Wars toys were inherited from my older brother, who got them back in the 70s, early 80s when I was still very, very, very little. And I got the Kenner Ewok Village was my first Star Wars toy, and it was a big one, too. That was like my main Christmas present that year.
Something similar was the Dagobah system, which was Yoda's planet.
Oh, I know what it is.
Yeah, but the toy was that same type of deal. It was like a little planet, and you could do different
Right,
things.
you can
in
make
there.
the X-Wing levitate out of the swamp. Yeah.
And I had that. That was mine. I had a lot of, they separated those toys. They would be like, this is yours, even though we would all play with it,
Yeah.
But I remember having Dagobah.
Nice.
It's funny.
That is funny. I didn't have Dagobah. Jealous.
Star Wars toys. All right. One other thing we have to clear up at the top of the show here is the last riddle of the year. Before we get to that December riddle, we do want to clean up the November riddle. So if you can remind the Jawheads what that was, Matt.
Yes, the November riddle one last time was this. I once got lost on a highway with a director who hates cell phones. I might be crazy because sometimes I move things with my mind and talk to yogurt, robots, and my dog. I fought monsters with Betty White and Randy Quaid on separate occasions. I'm not Mr. Right, and I ain't no pushman. Who am I?
Heard from quite a few Jawheads. Most of them, in fact, just about all of them that did come in, got the answer correct. Explain the riddle here, Matt K.
Sure. Lost on a Highway with a Director Who Hates Cell Phones is a reference to the David Lynch film Lost Highway. He famously has said how he hates watching movies on phones. I might be crazy because sometimes I move things with my mind. And talk to yogurt, robots, and my dog is a reference to Spaceballs, where he talks to yogurt, played by Mel Brooks, robots, there was a couple of droids in that, but famous Joan Rivers played the droid, and his dog, which is a bit of a cheat, his Mog, John Candy, Barf. Fought monsters with Betty White in Lake Placid and Randy Quaid in Independence Day. I'm not Mr. Right. He was also in the movie Mr. Wrong. And I ain't no Pushman because he is Bill Pullman.
That is the answer right there, Bill Pullman.
Pullman.
Yes.
Did you like that one?
I liked it. That was fun. A good way to end it, too, the Pushman joke. So let me reach into the hat, pull out a name. And we have here Brian Fantilla from California.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Congratulations, Brian. We will send out a prize pack to you. Write us your address, feedback@cinemajaw.com. That brings us to December.
Okay.
Our December riddle.
Last of the year
is this.
I'm very competitive. In one instance, I had my cousin killed. In another, I had my rival whacked. So pretty, my husband swings on trees for me. So popular, I left my gang. I'm a murdered actress who doesn't die. Is that clue a little blurry? How ironic. Who am I?
If you know the answer to the December riddle, write us feedback@cinemajaw.com. You can win a prize pack. I believe we actually just got the movie Hustlers with J-Lo.
Oh, nice.
Blu-ray.
So we're going to give that away.
They said to give it away, so you'll win that, and that'll be inside the prize pack of many things.
Blu-rays.
So, yeah, pretty
Beautiful.
Cool.
Yep.
So write us feedback@cinemajaw.com and get your name in that hat.
Do it.
All right, Matt. Whew. I love that, the housekeeping part of the show when we're
me too.
starting off a new month. That brings us to Eye for an Eye.
This week, we're going eye for an eye on Jumanji: The Next Level. The gang is back, but the game has changed. As they return to rescue one of their own, the players will have to brave parts unknown, from arid deserts to snowy mountains, to escape the world's most dangerous game. Returning cast includes Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black. Also joining the fun is Danny DeVito and Awkwafina. It is directed by Jake Kasdan, who directed the last Jumanji in 2017.
I'm shocked. I'd love to go back and hear what I gave the earlier Jumanji, this remake one that was Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
If I gave that an ignore or an interested. But
I'm sure you ignored it.
I'm pretty sure I did, but I did catch up with it at home. I remember I rented it and had such a fun time with it. They got the tone right. The Rock's very charismatic. Kevin Hart is hilarious. I love Jack Black. The cast was great. And this time they're bringing on Awkwafina and Danny DeVito. Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, shockingly, a Jumanji sequel to a Jumanji reboot is not exactly a property that you would expect even me to be interested in. But yeah, for all the reasons you just listed, Awkwafina, Danny DeVito, plus all the original cast, I'm damn interested.
Pat, where do you fall on this one?
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. Just mainly off of the cast, I'm really interested in seeing it.
Who would have thunk it, Matt? Like you said, a sequel to a reboot,
yeah.
And we're sitting here saying all three interested for
I mean,
Jumanji.
Do you think that they'll really be able to keep that going?
I hope so.
Do you think it's going to be a trilogy?
I hope so.
Wow. I'm shocked to hear you say that, honestly.
I didn't know you were about to say, do you think it's going to be a trilogy? I was saying I hope that they could keep it going.
For the film.
Yeah, for the film.
Right.
But I hope they end it in a good way. But if it's Hollywood and this movie's good, we're getting a sequel. That's just the world we live in now. So
that is.
It's
fair.
3 interesteds for Jumanji, The Next Level. Speaking of new films, Matt.
Yes. The Irishman, Ryan. First, some facts. The Irishman is the 9th movie collaboration between De Niro and Martin Scorsese. and their first since 1995's Casino. It's the seventh film to star both De Niro and Pesci, the first to star both Pacino and Pesci, and the first time Al Pacino has been directed by the great Martin Scorsese. The Irishman is also the longest runtime and the most expensive film by Martin Scorsese. But is it any good, or should you be deeply concerned? Ryan and I hit the mattresses to find out.
I was one of 1,000 working stiffs until I wasn't no more.
You got a good friend here. You don't know how good a friend you got.
Russell, he took a shine to me right away. After a while, he started giving me little things to do. I know you read a lot of things about me. I just want to say I'm sorry. I know I wasn't a good dad. I know that. I was just trying to protect all of you.
After 3.5 hours, I'm going to keep this review pretty brief. The Irishman is a collection of titans of the industry performing at their best, using some pretty impressive special effects, I'll get to that, to tell an epic mob story about one of America's most notorious disappearances. The cast is particularly amazing. Pacino as Jimmy Hoffa is like a bowl of ice cream for your movie mind. Every second he's on screen, you just want to eat him up with some sprinkles. It's a fantastic performance that's up there among his better ones. Pesci was great to see again, even if his role is somewhat more of a presence than a performance. Lastly, De Niro is wonderful as the lead, making a monster into a relatable, if deeply flawed, human being. I did not find the runtime to be tiresome in the slightest, and though much has been made of the de-aging special effects, I didn't find them distracting in the slightest either. However, The Irishman is no Goodfellas, Ryan. We revisit classic mob tropes. Everyone has a nickname. The mob uses their own codish doublespeak like deeply concerned to communicate. Everyone's violent end is exposed with titles that tell us exactly how and when they die. In other words, this is less of a, he did it again, and more of a, he did it again. In my humble opinion, the most interesting things about this movie are the casting, director, special effects, and Netflix platform, not the story. It's not a bad story, nor is it poorly delivered. It's good. It might even be great, but it's not another classic. Maybe I was expecting too much. Before I wrap up, I want to highlight two things. First, the funniest beat in the movie for me comes in an argument over a fish and a seating arrangement. This was subtle and hilarious. I loved it. Second, much has been made of Anna Paquin's role and her lack of lines in the film. I think this detraction misses the point of her character. She is the silent witness and Jiminy Cricket of the story. Her silence speaks volumes, and to give her that scene where they have the exposition between the father and daughter, I think that would be to give the character and the audience a cheap, unearned relief to the tension. In other words, I didn't have a problem with that role whatsoever, and her being somewhat mute. However, does the movie have great female roles? No, I guess it doesn't. Food for thought. The Irishman is a damn good movie, but I doubt it would make my top 10 of the year. There's nothing new done with the genre, save some impressive special effects and casting. Turns out, even lesser Scorsese is still worth your 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I give you that. I was shocked that the runtime didn't feel in any way of a nuisance.
Did you watch this in one sitting?
One sitting.
You were at the theater.
In the theater.
Yeah. Did you get up to pee?
Not once. And when it came to Jimmy Hoffa, and this comes up in the film, I knew the big details. Head of Teamsters, worked with the mob, disappeared. That's really all I had known. And I think that's what probably the vast majority of people who went into The Irishman knew.
Maybe if that.
If you're an older person listening to the podcast, you may have known a little bit more about Jimmy Hoffa, read up on him some, but I don't think our generation, and we joked with producer Pat if he even knew who Jimmy Hoffa was, and he had said he knew the name. This was before we had hit record. So I found it remarkable that Scorsese could tell so much, cover a generation of time, and make it feel so effortlessly. And it just feels like it's such a smooth movie. It's smooth storytelling. The de-aging that you mentioned, a bit distracting the very first time you see it. I think
truck
because
scenes?
yes,
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to be at their youngest at that point, and it's just we haven't seen De Niro look that young, so it was a little startling, but something I got used to, and after a while, not distracting. De Niro's best in some time, and the same with Al Pacino, like you said. I was starting to think he wasn't going to have another great performance, and I would put this up in Pacino's higher of the
Right.
in his
it's
career.
one of his better ones, but is it a
really
Scarface?
is.
No.
No.
Is it a Heat even from either one of these guys? No.
I would argue that it's probably at that level or better. This didn't feel like it was 3.5 hours, and that's credit to all involved, because I think the actors on screen were compelling. I love that you had said Joe Pesci was more of a presence than a performance. I agree with that. But it was good to see and sort of feel that presence on screen.
Oh, it was
again.
great. It was great. I agree.
And then lastly, Scorsese, who heads this whole thing up. Like I say, I mean, you're covering a lot of ground and a lot of details from Jimmy Hoffa being, involved with the mob in the sense that he has to give money to these people who are building Vegas because they can't get loans from banks because it had to do with gambling. A lot of things that it was coming at you pretty rapidly.
Yeah, some short-sightedness on the part of the banks there.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally. And I mean, you got the whole Cuba situation going down.
Yeah.
You got Kennedy in the White House. There's so much going on in this movie, and it wasn't tough to keep track of. Everything made sense. It's smooth. I didn't feel at any point he lingered too long on maybe this one particular part of Hoffa's life. I think the movie felt balanced, storytelling perfect, but it was missing that cherry on top. I agree. It's not probably as good as Goodfellas, and there's going to be a lot of comparisons when you're doing Scorsese. So it doesn't have that final, yes, this is a classic. Good. I can't look at a movie like The Irishman and pick out a lot of faults, but yet I wouldn't say it achieved the greatness that Scorsese has in the past.
Yeah. So there's a minor gripe I have with what you just said, and maybe this is a nod to the fans, but there are some confusing beats where I think Scorsese just shows us people who we're expected to know. For the most part, I think he does a pretty good job explaining who everyone is and where they fit in. But there's this one assassination that comes about 2/3 of the way through the movie. I don't want to spoil anything because it is later in the movie, but there's a mobster who hires people who aren't Italian to work for him, and one of them shoots somebody. And it's a very explicit execution scene. Do you know what I'm talking
Yes.
about? And I have no idea who was shot, why. I don't know how that fits into the story. It was just kind of to show how crazy this character was, I guess.
Yes, that's what I thought so as well.
But who was that? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So you didn't like the names and dates of when the people died? I loved that.
No, I didn't say I didn't like it. I just think it's an old trope that they're just dragging through again.
But had we seen it to this degree, because I think part of the allure of The Irishman and having it be 3.5 hours and covering the ground that it did was to show you how many people were involved
and how they all died
and how
violent
they all
ends.
died in these strange hits on the side of the road or a car bomb or what have you. But amazing amount of people that died that had some type of interaction with Jimmy Hoffa and the mob and the group. And the way he was able to tie that all together, just show it all. And like I say, it just flowed so nicely.
It did. And who am I to second guess Martin Scorsese other than to say I might have preferred to see that as a montage at the end. One character in particular, Sally, the guy who likes to sit in the back seat, let's say. His death is explained in a title when we first meet him, and then later in the picture we actually get to see it, whereas most of the others we do not. And so it felt redundant by that point, even though we find out who exactly it was that did the killing, and I suppose that's a bit of a reveal, but it didn't really matter that much. I don't know.
But we didn't see that for all of the characters. Most of them were just...
I think it would have been cooler to see all that, make it a montage of a bunch of people getting whacked at the end of the movie.
Nah, we didn't need that.
Maybe we did.
Performances, like we said, all great. You mentioned this Anna Paquin not getting enough lines, but
Right.
that's not even
It's a big
coming
kerfuffle.
not even coming from the actress herself. She's already been on Twitter saying, like, I auditioned for the role and I knew what the role was, and it was an honor, and I thought it turned out exactly how I wanted it to. So it's not coming from her. This is just some people are going to find something wrong with everything just because
Right.
their particular ideology of what that character should have been wasn't represented.
Right. And like I said, I think you can make a very good case that this movie does not have enough for women to do. But that's how it was
just
written.
a story,
and
right?
And I don't think that her character is worse because she doesn't speak. In fact, I think that's exactly how she was intended to be. I don't get it.
So I did want to touch on the viewing experience because you mentioned you watched it at home on Netflix. Did you pause it at any time? Did you, and even have like a long break, like even,
No.
20 minutes in between
No.
the pause, or you more or less watched it in one sit?
I more or less watched it in one sit. And I was talking to my friend about it because he watched it the day before, and he told me that he had watched it, shout out to Jeremy, more as an episodic thing. Like he watched 45 minutes, then went and did something else, came back to it. I didn't do that. I watched all the way through. I did pause it. I did take a cigarette break. I went and peed. I made myself a sandwich because I could, because I was in the comfort of my own home. But then I sat down, hit play, and resumed, and I watched the whole thing straight through. So it was nice to be able to pause it and take those short breaks. But I totally agree with you. There was no point in the movie where I was like, oh, let's go. Come on. It kept me engaged.
Yeah, especially when we're going to be doing our top 5, movies that are 3 hours plus. This was one of them that used the time well.
Agreed. Every moment is packed with, it's De Niro, Pesci, and Al Pacino. Like, I can take that all day. So it was fantastic.
Breaking it down a little bit further, a highlight of a scene that you had or something else you want to mention?
Well, I sort of mentioned it in my review here, this scene with the fish, and it's in the back seat. And then the whole ride, he's like, so what kind of fish was it? The guy's like, I don't know. It was a fish. You mean you just walk it and you say, give me a fish?
It was great dialogue.
Yeah, that was the best scene.
That was awesome. Well, there's another great, there's actually, I think, if I went back and I watched it a second or third time through the years, I'll pick up on even more of the clever dialogue. But another great scene that highlights it is when Jimmy Hoffa is waiting to have a meeting with Tony Pro.
That was a funny scene.
And Tony Pro comes in shorts and late. And, of course, Hoffa is very big on,
being on time.
Being on time and being dressed for the occasion of having a meeting. And that conversation and the way those two actors worked on screen, fantastic. It's tense, but it's funny also.
Yeah, I agree. Those two were great together. They had some good chemistry.
Yeah, the guy who played Tony Pro, can we throw that actor's name into the fish tank? I know he actually played Al Capone on
Empire.
Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
But I don't know the actor's name. Great job. You got a movie poster quote for us, Matt?
I do. First, a little jab at Marty for some things he said. This is my first movie poster quote.
Oh, he's got multiple.
Yeah. Just two. Oh, like you've never done that.
All right, just because I do it.
Just because it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, man. It's not cinema, it's Netflix.
That's good.
Thanks, man.
I mean, it's a good jab at Marty.
Yeah, he deserves it. Here's the real one. The Irishman is a mob movie you won't forget about. You like it?
I like it.
All right, what do you got?
I went with, you must watch or Netflix will go on strike.
A little play on Hoffa's
There you go.
Teamster Union.
How many Jaws you going on this one, Matt Kay?
3.5 Jaws.
Wow. Unbelievable. I went 3.5 Jaws as well.
It's very easy to say this is a 4-Jaw movie, and it's not because of the length or anything else. It just kind of it makes it over the hurdle, but not in a spectacular fashion.
Right. Yeah. I think I summed it up when I said I can't look at the movie and actually pull out a bunch of faults of the movie. It's well made. It flows great. It's just, for me, missing that cherry on top to put it over the edge. So.
Yeah. Some sort of spark.
When do we say that 3.5 isn't a damn good movie?
It's a damn good movie.
So, if you've seen The Irishman, which I know most people out there probably already have since it's streaming at home, let us know what you thought. Shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw. We'll retweet it and get the discussion going. All right, and that brings us to our top 5 this week, Matt. And we have a new sponsor of the Cinemajaw Top 5.
Yeah, we do, right? Jiffy On Demand is back, and they're still sponsoring our top 5. And these guys are fantastic. I was telling you about my broken pipes in my bathroom last week. So get this. This is absolutely true for jawheads who think we're doing a bit for the ad. This actually happened. My furnace broke.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. In the middle of winter in Chicago. Well, it's December, but trust me, it's cold here already. So I scrambled. What did I do? I pulled up my phone, went to the Jiffy app, and as simple as ordering an Uber, I found an HVAC guy that was vetted and licensed, and he was able to come and fix my furnace.
So Jiffy On Demand, if I have this right, Matt, since you've used this now, is a place where you can go on the app and pull up plumbers, heating guys,
electricians, carpenters, handymen.
Little things that you need done at a place when you don't have time or know how to do so.
Right. And the pricing is always 100% transparent. The rates are shown to you in the app before you book, and every Jiffy job comes with their 100% satisfaction guarantee.
Where does Jiffy On Demand operate, Matt K?
They are in Toronto, Ottawa, Boston, and Chicago. Aren't we lucky?
That's awesome. And the app is easy to use?
It's really easy to use. Like I said, it's as simple as ordering an Uber. You look, you read a couple reviews, not like going on Google where you're spending hours trying to find the right person, making phone calls. It's simple.
The best part is I hear we have an offer code to offer our listeners.
Yeah, that's right. If you use the code Cinemajaw, dead simple, you save $25 on your first Jiffy job. And please do it. We get the credit, and you save $25.
That's awesome. We're saving the Jawheads $25 for using the offer code Cinemajaw.
That's right. So if you got a house or something you need fixed, use Jiffy On Demand, and remember to use the offer code Cinemajaw, and we thank them for their support.
I just like the name, Jiffy On Demand.
I like it, too.
Love it. All right, Matt, our top 5 this week, we're talking movies with a 3-hour-long runtime or more, 3 hours plus. What do you got sitting at number 5?
All right. At number 5, I have a movie that felt epic in scope when it came out back in 1995. It was also one of my favorite movies for a very long time. It hasn't aged tremendously well, largely due to the star and, if I'm not mistaken, director, who has sort of fallen from the graces largely because of his asinine behavior. I am, of course, talking about Braveheart. And I remember when I got this on VHS, Ryan.
You're talking the double VHS,
double
aren't you?
VHS tapes, man. And it cut the place where it ended. I'll never forget is right when Longshanks is like he had just thrown his son's gay lover out of a window to his death below, and he's trying to decide how he's going to deal with Wallace, and that's where the tape ended, and you had to put in tape 2.
It is a movie that doesn't feel long. When you say Braveheart, and you're saying it's 3 hours plus.
It's 3 hours, 2 minutes.
There you go.
Exact.
But in my mind, I would not right away think Braveheart is actually 3 hours, and that's a compliment to the film because I would say it was probably about 2.5 hours.
Nope.
3.
It was a long one.
And I agree with you. When it came out, huge fan. Since then, it's
diminished.
It has.
Mostly because of Mel. Get it together, Mel.
All right. So I figure if we're doing a movie about films that are over 3 hours, I might as well look at the longest movie I've ever watched in my life. And it's a damn good movie.
The Kabinski's wedding video?
Oh, God.
That is a long movie.
Yeah, and it goes right together with the Kabinski's shortest movie of all time, The Honeymoon Tape. So the longest movie I've ever watched came out in 2003, and it is a whopping 366 minutes, which if you do the math here, Matt, is 6 hours long.
What?
6 hour long film.
That's 2 movies. Come on.
Comes to us from Italy, and it was presented in most cases as a 2-part film, 3 hours and 3 hours. That's how it was shown here in the U.S. as well. I watched this at home, so it was a 3-hour DVD and a 3-hour DVD.
You could say Kill Bill is all one movie. That's a cheat.
Right. But this was presented in theaters as a full 6-hour film when it went to the festivals, just to give you an idea. The name of the movie is called The Best of Youth. And like I say, 6 hours long. And I from my understanding, there's a lot of Italian cinema that tries to encapsulate an entire like generation and movement in Italy's history. And so this is somewhat common for people to try to tackle. And in this one, it starts in like the mid 1960s and runs all the way through 2003. And it chronicles the life of one Italian family and really focuses on two brothers in that family whose names are Matteo and Nicolai. And it's documenting their journey from when they're like late teens, early 20s, all the way to when they're retiring, and the political movement in Italy, small things that they had decided to do or be influenced by, and the way that gets hold of your life and changes the dynamic in the family that you had maybe with a brother or a sister. So interesting because it's so much time spent with these characters that you actually feel like you're watching a lifetime unfold in front of you. So by the time the 6 hours ends, you're just overcome with power because you've more or less seen this guy's life from when he was 20 years old to when he's retiring.
6 hours and you're telling me this is good? This is entertaining?
Oh, it's excellent. I wouldn't put it on the list and recommend it to the Jawheads.
It's like the War and Peace of film.
It's 6 hours long. The best of youth. I'm telling you, it's worth the dive. It's obviously quite the commitment. So,
did you watch it all in one sitting?
I did it in two. I did 3 hours on a Monday night and 3 hours on a Tuesday night.
Okay.
And it was powerful. It was a good movie.
I might take you up on that challenge. All right, that sends it over to my number 4, and this is where I put 1993's 3-hour, 17-minute Schindler's List.
Nice.
Spielberg has a few long entries, and it was really between this one and Saving Private Ryan for me. And I think they're both fantastic films, but at the end of the day, Schindler's List, I think, is the better film artistically. You know, he made a few bold choices. I mean, the subject matter alone is a bold choice, but then to go with black and white, it was sort of unheard of at the time, at least. I think since then we've gotten a few more entries, you know, and just his very sparing use of color when we see the little girl in the red coat, indelibly burned into my mind. It's a great movie full of amazing performances. Ben Kingsley, Liam Neeson, just fantastic. And I think the message is a good one. It's a message of hope and humanity that I think will stand the test of time.
Yeah, and all the while documenting in a way the horrors of the time. It just encapsulated it all.
And to see at the end of the film some of the actual survivors at Schindler's grave was pretty cool.
Thought that one would be on your list. I did. For my next pick, which is my number 4, this one came out in 1999. I love me some Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh, yes, you do.
And he made one movie that I think most people would maybe have not seen, or if they saw, would probably put near the bottom of his filmography. It's long, but I enjoy the heck out of it because of all the characters that populate this movie. I'm speaking of 1999's Magnolia, which clocks in...
not what I expected.
Clocks in just over 3 hours at 188 minutes for Magnolia. The themes in Magnolia feature are regret, loneliness, the cost of failed relationships as a result of bad parents, people who have failed their children, the cruelty to children, and like the lasting effect it has on those children as they become adults. It also features what I would say is Tom Cruise's best performance. He was nominated for an Oscar for a supporting role in the movie, didn't win. It's got Philip Seymour Hoffman in there, Julianne Moore, William H. Macy. It rains frogs at one point, and it's just something to behold. And at 3 hours, I don't go back to it that often, but I have in the last couple of years rewatched it and enjoy it even more every time I watch it.
Who's the filmmaker one more time?
Paul Thomas Anderson, who did There Will Be Blood and such.
Yeah, Boogie Nights.
And Boogie Nights.
Right.
Neither of those are over 3 hours, though.
Boogie Nights is close. Is it not over 3?
Can we throw that into the fish tank? How long is Boogie Nights?
I don't think be close.
I'm going to say that's just over 2 hours.
No,
Yeah.
it's like
We'll
250.
see.
250.
We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Okay, so that brings it back to me. At number 3, I have Deer Hunter, which I know we're both big fans of, right? So you have 3 of the best actors of all time, I would say, in this. Meryl Streep, Robert De Niro again, and Christopher Walken in what is kind of just a bizarre and gut-wrenching movie that spans decades and takes us through the horrors of Vietnam to a tranquil setting in the woods, POW camp, and, let's not forget that amazing Russian roulette scene that will just haunt me until the day I die. It's one of my favorites.
And I think when looking at movies that are 3 hours long here, did they use the time wisely? Yeah. And I think they do here, because I think you need to be with these characters to show the change that the Vietnam War had with these characters and the effects and how sad it all was, and where they grew up. And these guys were steel workers and regular Joes going off to war, and the horrors of the Vietnam War that they had to face. Oh.
Yeah. It's, I mean, not to wax poetic on wars too much, but the difference when we're talking movies with the World War II veterans that came home is they were sort of got this warm embrace. They came home heroes, and not so much for the vets in Vietnam. And we really get to see that in Deer Hunter and the effects of what they've been through.
My number 3, Matt, takes us to 1984. When you mention the director, Sergio Leone, a lot of people think of all the Westerns that he had made, but he made this one movie that actually starred James Woods and Robert De Niro that doesn't get talked about enough. I'm speaking of Once Upon a Time in America. And James Woods and Robert De Niro play best friends. The guy's name is David Noodles in the film, and Max. And they lead a group of young kids or young men into gangsters in New York City, world organized crime. The film explores themes of childhood friendship, love, lust, greed, all the good stuff that you want. And again, because you get to spend so much time with these characters, you see it all unfold in this long generation of time of early American culture.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh.
I've seen most of his Westerns, like all the Clint Eastwood ones and stuff. I never saw Once Upon a Time in America.
I think a lot of people skip it. I remember I saw it just when I was getting more and more interested in film, and, one of those guys that was just like, you got to see this movie, and he gave it to me.
God, how many
movies?
movies?
I sat down and I watched it, and I was like, yeah, I see why everybody likes this.
De Niro's in everything.
And that was actually Sergio Leone's last film. That was the last one that he made.
Interesting.
He would go on to pass away 5 years later. And I think he had taken maybe up to 15 years in between making that last film and then passed away. So.
Wow. Interesting, Ryan. All right, into our number 2s we go, and this is where I put the epic 3-hour, 11-minute long Gandhi. Gave us Ben Kingsley in a big, big way. This is a sort of a cradle-to-grave story of one of the world's most inspirational figures of all time. He's up there with some of the best. He led a movement of nonviolence in India that was trying to get its independence from Great Britain and colonialism. Just a great story, and we get to see Gandhi, Ben Kingsley, sort of develop from this lawyer to sort of a religious figure that we kind of recognize today as Gandhi in the sandals and turban or sandals and robe. And it's just a fun journey. It's great performances throughout and very educational to boot.
I agree. It was one of those that I felt like, wow, that was good, because I wanted to learn more about, Gandhi's upbringing, the movement and everything.
I actually came to this movie first in school. And I was just like, wow, that was a good movie. Like, I didn't think I would like it at all. And I loved it. So,
truth be told, my number 2 pick, Matt, was The Deer Hunter.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'm going to sub one in here that I was going to somewhat put it as an honorable mention as a joke at the end. But what the hell? Why not go for it? I'm going 1997, Leo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Titanic. Wow. What a film.
If I knew you were going to do that, I would have just given you Deer Hunter, man.
So, Titanic. You got to express how big the ship was, the journey it was on, the love and the loving relationship of Jack and Rose. And
You're
that's
Jack.
And that's why
Jackass.
the movie succeeded so well, was that Cameron had the confidence to stick with these two characters long enough to show the love that they had, so that at the tragic end, people cared so much about these two characters. And you see it in the theater, people were weeping like crazy. They had to be carried out. They were crying so hard.
Yeah. 13-year-old girls.
It was everybody.
And hey,
Matt.
there's nothing
It was
wrong with
everybody.
13-year-old girls, but let's be honest here. The reason
11
Titanic...
Academy Awards,
Oh, it's
Best
a piece
Picture,
of shit.
Best Director.
I'm sorry. It is a terrible movie.
It's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
It's ridiculously
AFI's
bad.
already named it in the
fact,
top 100 of all
I
time.
might go as far as to say James Cameron is one of the most overrated filmmakers
he's
of
not.
all time.
Just
Avatar sucks.
Every once in a while, you get this chip on your shoulder, and then I wanted to have a cinema war with you, and you're like, "Oh, I'm not going against Cameron," and you take another
because
stance on him.
people love him, and I'm sure that Mr. Unobtainium himself is going to knock it out of the park again with the next Avatar movie. He's a great marketer, not a great filmmaker.
Did you ever think they called it that just because they knew that was exactly what it was?
Listen, everybody wanted to see the amazing special effects scene of the ship sinking. You know, that's what we all...
It was awesome.
It
was awesome.
It
It
was
was
awesome.
terrifying.
That's exactly what we all bought our tickets for. So all he did was slap a cheesy love story on it, throw some boobs on the screen, and boom, there's a story with some, like, big diamond, and who cares? We just wanted to see the ship sink. That's it.
Titanic, my number 2.
Ugh. I'm actually disgusted. Number 1. All right, let's get this show back on track here. At number 1, I have one of the most technically lauded and critically lauded films that was over 3 hours. I don't have the runtime in front of me. Throw that in the fish tank, but it was definitely over 3 hours. Won a slew of Oscars, swept that year. Of course, it needs to be mentioned. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Just an amazing end.
Predictable from Matt Kay.
Oh, like Titanic isn't predictable from you.
I believe they won the same amount of Oscars, 11 Oscars each.
Is that a fact?
I believe so, yes.
Can we get verification on that fact, Pat? Because I really want him to be wrong, but
Yep.
It's interesting. Listen, there's not much I can add to Return of the King, except I'm a big fan of that moment when the ring wraith, the Witch King says, no man can kill me, and lo and behold, she takes off her helmet. She's like, I am no man, stabs him in the face.
And then you had the multiple
moment.
endings, the 7 different endings everybody would joke about. It seemed like, oh, here's the end, then another one, then another one.
Yeah, it kept ending. That's
It did.
true. It's still great, though.
Big fan, though, as I am. So I'll give that to you, Matt.
Thank you.
My number 1. I love my space. I love space movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about the space race, NASA, trying to get there. So for my number 1, I wanted to pick a movie that sort of showed the span of time that the achievement of getting man from not only breaking the sound barrier, but from that point to achieving actually getting into space and leaving this planet. So I go with 1983's The Right Stuff. It has a runtime of 192 minutes, and the film picks up in 1947 when Chuck Yeager becomes the first man to ever break the sound barrier.
Really, you're putting this at number 1?
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
I love The Right Stuff. This is a masterpiece, I think. And Chuck Yeager breaks the sound barrier in 1947. He's one of these guys, test pilots going as fast as he can, experimental planes. And of course, right around this time, you get all the Navy, Marine, Air Force test pilots come together to Edwards Air Force Base in California was the name of it. And they end up becoming the Mercury 7, who were the military pilots who would be sort of the guinea pigs for NASA's first astronauts. And it shows all of the stuff that they had to go through to get to the point where we were finally able to say, hey, we're going to put, man in space. Loved the whole journey of the entire saga.
Yeah.
Music's great. It's filmed great.
Man,
and like I say, good use of the 3 hours.
What year was that?
1983.
I don't know the last time I saw The Right Stuff, man, but I was very little, so maybe I need to revisit. Because that seems high to be on this at a number 1.
Big fan.
Okay.
Any honorables? I mentioned my Titanic. You've already took Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's tough because the only honorable I had was 2 hours and 48 minutes. Will you give it to me?
No.
Oh,
We're
all right, fine.
pretty hard
Then I
on
won't
the
even
3
mention
hours.
it. Won't even mention
The
it.
only one I had, but I've talked about it a few times, and it is a classic, Lawrence of Arabia.
Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur's one. Was it 3 hours? I don't even know.
Ben-Hur's over 3 hours.
Okay. Lawrence of Arabia, I have even on DVD is 2 discs. Where the movie's separated, I think, at an hour and 47 minutes on one and such.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Blue is the Warmest Color.
Yep, I was going to. Great one, and that is over 3 hours.
Yeah, quite long. It seems like it's, things are just sort of trending in that direction.
So we'll take it.
I agree.
If we missed a movie of yours that is a favorite and it has a runtime of over 3 hours, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can always write us feedback at cinemajaw.com. What we're going to do is take a break. When we come back, Matt is taking Patrick on in Jumanji movie trivia, plus a review of Richard Jewell. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby together.
In honor of Star Wars Month on Cinemajaw, we bring you this scene from the 1977 original, in which the great Alec Guinness, as Obi-Wan, introduces Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker to Mos Eisley spaceport and pulls a mind trick on some stormtroopers.
Mos Eisley Spaceport. You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
How long have you had these droids?
About 3 or 4 seasons.
They're up for sale.
Let me see your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
Move along.
Move along. Move along.
The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy so.
And we are back on Cinemajaw. Matt, before we get to our review of Richard Jewell, and before you take producer Pat on in Jumanji trivia, I know we threw some items into the fish tank, and Pat wants to swim up. It's been a long time. Let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
All right. So there were a few questions in the fish tank this week. The first one is, do they say porg in the movie The Last Jedi? And I actually couldn't find that online, and I didn't have enough time to rewatch the movie, so I actually have no idea.
It gives us some homework. Okay.
The actor who played Tony Pro in The Irishman was Stephen Graham.
Stephen Graham. I'm going to remember that. I like this guy.
How long was Boogie Nights? It was 2 hours and 36 minutes.
2.5. We were right in between. You thought it was close to 3. I said just over 2. Right in the middle.
You also asked the run time for Lord of the Rings Return of the King, and that was 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Wow.
And the last question was, how many Oscars did Lord of the Rings Return of the King win, as well as how many the Titanic won. And Lord of the Rings won 12, and Titanic won 13.
I was up by 1. I thought they both won 11.
It was that sound design Oscar that put you over the top. Nobody cares about the sound design. I kid.
Boy.
I'm kidding.
All right. Jump back in that fish tank, Pat.
All right, will do.
All right, Matt. Let's go back in time here The year 1996, the city of Atlanta, Georgia hosted the Summer Olympics. In 1996, a bomb went off in those Olympics. In 1996, the U.S. media was just reaching new heights of the 24-hour news cycle and were constantly looking for the next sensational story. This created the perfect storm, and an individual by the name of Richard Jewell found himself in the eye of that storm.
You always look at the guy who found the bomb just like you always look at the guy who found the body.
Jewell fits the profile of the lone bomber. A frustrated white man who is a police wannabe who seeks to become a hero.
We're running it.
You're a suspect.
You don't talk.
I talk.
Say it.
I don't talk. This might be the only way to clear your name. I want you to say there's a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes.
Stop trying to be their best friend.
I was raised to respect authority.
Authority's looking to eat you alive.
The film opens just a short time before the Olympics. We're introduced to Richard Jewell, who was working at a law firm and then later as a security guard at a small college. In this short introduction, we see that Richard Jewell was, well, for a lack of a better term, a little slow. However, his intentions are good. Richard gets a job doing security at the Olympics, where he seems to be taking his duties more serious than most. At a crowded Centennial Olympic Park, he finds a suspicious bag left unattended. He seems to do everything right, informs authorities, and begins to clear the area of people. When trained personnel open the bag and see that it is in fact a bomb, Richard and a host of other security try to get people to move. Just a few moments later, it went off. The media sure had their story now, and in the hours after the bombing, Richard Jewell was hailed a hero. However, as the investigation goes on, the media takes a small leak of a theory and turns it against Richard. Director Clint Eastwood clearly has it out for the media in this film. He shows the evil side of trying to profit off news that may not be real, and how that can ruin a person's life. Playing Richard Jewell is Paul Walter Hauser. He's probably best known, at least to me, for being the bodyguard in I, Tonya. And he does a remarkable job of showing how vulnerable Richard was. He is unaware of how savage the media and U.S. government can be when they want to get their narrative out to win. Sam Rockwell plays his lawyer, Kathy Bates plays his mom, and John Hamm as the FBI agent heading the case. All serviceable performances here, but the other highlight in the movie, besides Paul Walter Hauser, is Olivia Wilde, who plays a reporter that you just hate. Eastwood once again goes in with a minimal score, and I think that hurts when it comes to building up emotional moments in the pivotal scenes. That said, I think this is a story we need to see, and we need to learn from it. Matt?
That's an interesting take, Ryan. I don't know how much I learned other than the story that this is based on. I mean, taking shots at the media is probably fair. Maybe a bit of an easy target, and it was pretty interesting to see how it sort of turned against Richard. But at the end of the day, this is sort of just a biopic about a guy who was falsely accused of a crime and ultimately exonerated. I think really the standout is Sam Rockwell, who's my favorite in the picture.
Well, I think the key in here is you phrasing it as he was falsely accused of a crime. It was just an investigation. They weren't 100% sure.
Right. They never officially accused him or charged him.
Right. So that's why it's really a shot at the media. It's just we can't control ourselves when it comes to getting the stories out and all the, especially now with Twitter and social media, it's even worse. But when you went back then, when the media was really getting into that 24-hour news cycle, they just couldn't stop themselves. But there was no facts against Richard Jewell. It was just an investigation and literally ruined this man's life. The media did. And there's one scene in particular, and I wanted to talk to you about it, was the character that Olivia Wilde plays is a reporter that in probably might not have just been one reporter, but for the sake of the movie here, we have one reporter that was really the person who got the whole ball rolling towards, the idea that Richard Jewell was now the guy who planted the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene in there where she feels remorse and she has this emotional moment. And I didn't like that at all.
I didn't like that at all either.
For one, I don't have this. I always think emotionally, I watch a movie almost perfect. I always get the beats of the film. I was like confused because I was starting to feel sorry for her in a way, and I didn't want to feel sorry for her. I didn't know what I was feeling. I was like, I don't want to know that she felt bad in any way. I think that's what he was trying to convey in that particular scene, and I hated that moment.
I hated it too, yeah, because she doesn't really necessarily get any sort of comeuppance. And yeah, that was an offbeat. It was an offbeat. I don't understand what Eastwood was going for there.
So were you pretty familiar with Richard Jewell's story?
Not at all.
So
you?
Yes, very much. So to me, knowing the story...
it was like Jimmy Hoffa to me.
Okay. So for me, I knew the story. I remember the Olympic bombing. I looked up stuff. I knew who Richard Jewell was.
Well, I did all that after the fact.
Yeah, but I'm saying before. I'm saying years and years ago. Because I think I remember seeing a report who Richard Jewell was, and I was like, oh man, I thought he was the guy that, and I remember looking this all up.
You thought he was the bomber?
Everybody did. I think still to this day, before this movie comes out, there's probably half the population thinks he's still the bomber. That was probably the thing that, may I say, pissed me off the most, is still to this day, half the population thinks that Richard Jewell bombed the Olympics because it was such a news story, but yet when they realized they made the mistake, they didn't go back and put that much effort into making sure they cleared the guy's name. Now it was just like, we just won't talk about it anymore. The damage was done. And the way our society works, it's all about that sensational story, and that's what people remember.
Yeah, I guess, man. No, and you have a fair point. I question Eastwood's motives behind making this film, and I don't want to get too into the weeds that aren't exactly on the screen, but vilifying the media has become sort of a bit of a trope for ideologies I don't sort of align with. So that makes me a little suspicious. And Eastwood himself, though I think of him as one of the greats and certainly one of the greatest filmmakers of my lifetime, perhaps, he's also sort of outspoken for ideologies I don't always line up with. So I do question that. Just judging the film on its own merits, I think we could have gotten a lot more out of Kathy Bates. She's just an amazing talent, and she's a little underused. That's a minor gripe.
But they do give her one big moment. And it's an emotional moment.
Was that big?
I have it down as a moment I wanted to highlight. If anything, where I really felt,
her speech or when she goes to the bathroom?
No, the speech.
Okay.
I loved it. I thought that was the sort of the moment of the movie of, that pleading, to try to clear her son's name. I love that moment.
Yeah,
that was really touching.
Yeah, for sure. It's the Sam Rockwell show as far as I'm concerned. Like every moment he's on screen, I really like this movie. When Hosser's on the screen, he plays Richard Jewell as sort of this lovable loser who's, perhaps a bit dim, as you mentioned, or slow, but with the best of intentions. But you can also see how he was a bit of a D, like he was kind of given this bet by his early friend who becomes his lawyer to not become an asshole when he gets his badge. And lo and behold, he sort of does. It did fit, like everything that they, and I'm not saying he deserved it. He didn't. What happened to him is terrible, but he did fit the mold. He was everything that you look for in a lone bomber, and he did sort of want so desperately to be a hero cop and had failed at it his whole life, at least according to the film. So I don't know. Like I said, the motivation behind the movie is questionable, but the execution of the film itself on the screen, what I saw, I did rather enjoy it quite a bit.
You got a movie poster quote for us?
You go first. Right?
All right. I went with Richard Jewell is mad as hell, and he's not going to take it anymore.
Oh, pulling a page out of the Network book, huh?
See? Because that had to do with media and such as well.
All right. Mine is, the reports are true. Richard Jewell's pretty good.
How many Jaws, Matt K?
I give this one 2.5 Jaws.
I liked it a little bit more. I went 3 Jaws for Richard Jewell.
It's a fun movie to watch on a rainy afternoon.
I don't know about fun.
Well, not fun. It's a good. I don't know. It's fun. It's interesting, compelling.
Yes. All right. If you see Richard Jewell, you agree, disagree, just want to yell at us, write us feedback at cinemajaw.com. Before we get to trivia, Matt, we wanted to touch on a couple of Hollywood headlines.
The first Hollywood headline this week is that the Black Widow teaser trailer has dropped.
I have no comment. I haven't seen the trailer. I believe this is an Avengers movie.
You just didn't watch it?
No, I have not seen it. I didn't even know that it dropped, to be absolutely 100% honest.
I can't believe you sometimes, Ryan. Why wouldn't you watch this? I saw the trailer. I think it's amazing. I think it's about damn time that Black Widow gets her own movie. In fact, it's maybe you could say one picture too late. She should have probably had hers before Captain Marvel. But whatever. Finally, we get a chance to see Scarlett Johansson, her epic portrayal of this character sort of come to fruition. We get to learn her origins and have a fun adventure along the way. It looks more in the vein of a Winter Soldier than any other of the Avengers movies. It's not like high science fiction in space or anything like that. It looks like an action spy espionage movie.
I got nothing.
The guy from Stranger Things, Hooper.
Nice.
Yeah, plays Red Guardian. He looks like he got jacked for this too,
I don't know
man.
who Red Guardian is, but
he's basically the Russian counterpart for Captain America.
They always have counterparts, don't they?
They do. Yeah, that's escalation, Ryan.
Yeah. When's that come out? Summer?
May 2020.
There you go.
If I'm not mistaken.
What else we got going on here?
The second headline, award season has gotten started. National Board of Review names The Irishman Best Film and also names Adam Sandler Best Actor for Uncut Gems.
Wow. That phrase, Adam Sandler, Best Actor.
Doesn't surprise me.
I have seen the film. You have not yet.
Not yet.
You're about to.
About to.
And we will get a review out to the Jawheads. And I will say Sandler is excellent in it. And it's done by the Safdie brothers, who, believe it or not, former guests on Cinemajaw.
Wow. How about that? Listen, here, mark my words. Adam Sandler has disappointed us over the past, I'd say, decade with crappy comedy after crappy comedy. Some of them were better than others. I'm not a huge fan of his broad comedies since, the third Happy Madison production. It sort of went downhill. But then you got Punch Drunk Love and Meyerowitz stories that actually show that, hey, man, Sandler is a real talent. Can't wait to see Uncut Gems, and I'm stoked that he's getting this attention.
Yeah, as for The Irishman winning Best Picture, I think we summed it up in our review. If someone loved it enough to say it, I'm not going to argue it against it, because it's such a well-made movie. Just wouldn't be my pick for Movie of the Year.
Yeah, it wouldn't be mine either. Oh, mark my words. Sandler, Oscar, next decade. It's going to happen.
Oh, wow.
I've said it here. It's on the record, Ryan.
All right. I love it. All right. We'd like to end the Jaw with some fun trivia here. And in honor of the new Jumanji movie coming out, we're playing Jumanji trivia. That means all 3 of the Jumanjis and people who have been in it are up for grabs here.
Okay.
All right. Works like this. Pat, you're our producer and guest this week. You get to choose if you want to go first. Let Matt K go first. There's steals, and if you get hung up on any question, you get one Rescue Me Ryan. I'll help you out with a clue. They're easy to start here, Pat. What do you want to do?
I'll go first.
Question 1, Jumanji trivia over to Pat. In 2006, Jack Black played a professional wrestler in this comedy.
I have no idea why I'm blanking on this. Give me a second.
You got a little while. I'm eating nachos over here.
Oh, yeah. Nacho Libre.
1-0.
Boy, hold his hand, why don't you?
What? I didn't give him a hint there. Question 2 over to Matt K. Matt, Danny DeVito starred in 1987's Throw Mama from the Train. What actor starred alongside him, helping him in his attempt to kill his mother?
Billy Crystal.
1-1. Question 3, back over to Pat. Pat, Bonnie Hunt, who is in the latest Jumanji, who was in the original Jumanji, in 1995, appears in this Tom Cruise movie the following year. in which Tom Cruise is a sports agent?
I got nothing.
What if we showed you the money?
Moneyball. Nope.
Really,
Still
man?
incorrect.
Really?
Still incorrect.
Jerry Maguire.
Wow, this is going to be bad.
Show me the money.
Wow. 2-1.
neither.
2-1, Matt K. Question 4 is over to him. Matt, in 2015, Kevin Hart starred in the comedy Get Hard with this Saturday Night Live alum. Name him.
2014?
2015.
Will Ferrell.
That is correct. Uh-oh. It's 3-1. Question 5, back over to Pat. Danny DeVito directed and starred in a 1995 film with Robin Williams. It was about a star of a children's show who was fired over a bribery scandal. Name the film.
I'm going to use my Rescue Me Ryan.
Whoa! Rescue Me Ryan. Your clue is, if you get this right, I'll give you a big smooch on your lips.
I think that image has just shocked him into silence.
A smooch on your lips.
Yeah, I've got nothing.
That probably gave it to Matt.
No, I knew it. It's one of my favorites, Death to Smoochie.
Wow, 4-1. I tried to help you out.
Gotta see this
there.
one, Pat.
I tried to help you out. Question 6, back over to Matt. Matt, name the 2013 movie that starred Dwayne Johnson and Mark Wahlberg. It was directed by Michael Bay.
Really? 2013,
Dwayne Johnson and Mark Wahlberg. Directed by Michael Bay.
Michael Bay. Was that like one of the Transformers movies? Transformers. The one with Mark Wahlberg. Can I just say Transformers?
Pat, you got a chance for a
Teenage
steal
Mutant Ninja
here.
Turtles.
Chance for a steal.
I feel like I can picture this movie. Was it Central Intelligence?
Ooh. Incorrect. We're looking for Pain and Gain. Pain and Gain. All right. It's still 4-1, Matt K. And question 7 now is over to Pat. Pat, name the actress who starred in the 1995 Jumanji movie. She also starred in Marie Antoinette, The Beguiled, and Elizabethtown.
I'm completely blanking on the cast of any of those movies.
And Spider-Man.
She was also in the original Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and The Amazing Spider-Man. No.
Why did I have to
3.
be on trivia when I'm sick? I literally have no idea.
Matt?
You have to be on trivia because you're sick. Kirsten Dunst.
One of Pat's favorites, too. I
Yeah.
put that in there for Pat, and he blew it, you know?
Blew it.
Yeah.
You blew it, Pat.
5-1. Last question of the game, over to Matt K. Matt, Danny Glover, who is in the new Jumanji, has starred in one...
Really?
Yeah. He has starred in one film with Eddie Murphy. It came out in 2006. Name it.
2006 is not the good Eddie Murphy era. That's like the daddy daycare era.
You do have a lifeline if you need it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think it was Norbit. All right, Rescue Me, Ryan.
Wow, Rescue Me, Ryan. Question number 8. Your clue is it was a musical.
It was a musical. 2006. It wasn't like it's a musical with Eddie Murphy. Harlem Nights 2.
Ah, terrible.
I blew it. What is it?
Dreamgirls. Dreamgirls.
Oh,
they were
right.
both in there.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I got to catch up with that one.
If it came down to a tie, Matt wins this one 5-1. It was a slaughter. If it came
we'll
down
get Knuckles because
there
you're
you
sick.
go.
Yeah.
If it came down to a jawbreaker, this question would have been over to Matt K.
Okay.
Which Jumanji star is funnier, Kevin Hart or Jack Black?
It's actually Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's a trick question.
Give that one too. I don't know myself. I like them both.
They're both equal. Probably, maybe Jack Black.
Yeah, I'm a big Jack Black fan, but when Kevin Hart, especially in like a Jumanji, it's damn good.
Kevin Hart's
also.
pretty damn good.
Yes. Real jawbreaker was this: Age of Danny Glover, closest to Matt.
Wait a sec. Pause. This is Danny Glover from the Lethal
Correct.
Weapon. Okay. Danny Glover. Okay. He's been too old for this since 1990, right? When the first Lethal Weapon came out. Too old for this. Dude's got to be like 75 years old. That's my guess.
Lock him in at 75. Pat, you got to guess?
I'll say 77.
It's Matt's night. 73.
Wow.
But he's getting up there.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's had a long and storied career.
Pat, you got to get better at trivia.
Yeah. I know I do.
Brings us to the end of a great job. And first and foremost, we got to thank producer Pat for helping us out, even though he's a bad trivia contestant. We got to thank him.
Special thank you to Pat for being sort of the punching bag, and also for doing Jaw while under the weather.
You know, it was a rough night, but I was glad I could give Matt another win. And it's always a good night when I'm here. So glad to be here, guys.
Matt, we also got to thank our sponsors.
Yes, thanks to Jiffy On Demand and Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op, who help us get great sponsors like them.
Yes, if you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
And while you're at it, click subscribe, one extra button. It helps us out a ton. Please do it.
Until next week, I'm Rye the Movie Guy.
I'm Matt Kay, and keep on jawing about the movies.